Princess Beatrice Elizabeth Mary was born on August 8th, 1988, followed 2 years later by her sister Eugenie Victoria Helena on March 23rd, 1990. From their first breath, these two girls entered a world where every move would be watched, every outfit criticized, and every decision questioned by millions of strangers around the globe. Their father, Prince Andrew, Duke of York, was Queen Elizabeth II's third child and a decorated naval officer who had served with distinction in the Falklands War. Their mother, Sarah Ferguson, known to the world as Fergie, brought a refreshing energy to the royal family with her red hair, infectious laugh, and unconventional approach to royal duties. Together, Andrew and Sarah seemed like the perfect modern royal couple, young and vibrant, ready to bring the monarchy into a new era. The early years of Beatrice and Eugenie's childhood were filled with the kind of magical moments that fairy tales are made of. They lived at Sunninghill Park, a sprawling estate in Berkshire that Andrew had built as the family home. The house, with its modern architecture and expansive grounds, was a far cry from the ancient castles and formal palaces that housed other members of the royal family. Here, the girls could run freely through gardens, play with their beloved corgis, and experience something resembling a normal childhood. Sarah Ferguson was determined that her daughters would not grow up isolated from the real world. She took them shopping at regular stores, enrolled them in local activities, and made sure they understood that their royal status came with responsibilities to help others. During their early years, the family often appeared together at public events, with little Beatrice and Eugenie charming crowds with their natural curiosity and unguarded smiles. The sisters developed a close bond from their earliest days. Beatrice, as the older sister, naturally took on a protective role, while Eugenie brought a spark of mischief and adventure to their shared experiences. They attended the same schools, shared the same friends, and created their own private world within the larger royal framework. Their personalities were already beginning to show. Beatrice was thoughtful and studious, often seen with a book in her hand, while Eugenie was more outgoing and artistic, drawn to creative pursuits. But beneath the surface of their privileged childhood, cracks were beginning to appear in their parents' marriage. The pressure of royal life, combined with Andrew's demanding naval career and Sarah's struggle to adapt to the rigid protocols of the monarchy, created tensions that would eventually tear their family apart. The tabloid press, always hungry for royal drama, began to focus intensely on Sarah's every move, criticizing her weight, her spending habits, and her unconventional approach to royal duties. The girls were still very young when the first serious scandals began to emerge. In 1992, when Beatrice was just 4 and Eugenie was 2, photographs appeared in newspapers showing Sarah having her toes sucked by her financial advisor, John Bryan, while on vacation in the south of France. The images sent shockwaves through the royal family and marked the beginning of the end for her marriage to Andrew. The divorce proceedings were painful and public, conducted under the intense scrutiny of the media. Throughout this difficult time, both Andrew and Sarah were determined to protect their daughters from the worst of the publicity. They agreed to joint custody arrangements that would allow the girls to maintain close relationships with both parents, and they worked hard to present a united front whenever they appeared together at public events. Despite their parents' divorce, Beatrice and Eugenie continued to spend time at royal residences, including Balmoral Castle in Scotland and Windsor Castle, where they developed close relationships with their grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II. The Queen, who had always been fond of her granddaughters, made sure they understood their place in the royal family and the importance of duty and service. She also provided them with the stability and tradition that their immediate family life sometimes lacked. The girls attended Upton House School in Windsor, where they were able to mix with children from non-royal families and experience something approaching normal social relationships. Their teachers remember them as polite, well-behaved children who never used their royal status to gain special treatment. Beatrice excelled academically, showing particular aptitude for languages and history, while Eugenie demonstrated artistic talents and a natural ability to connect with people from all walks of life. As they grew older, the sisters began to understand more about their unique position in the world. They were royal princesses, but they were also children of divorced parents living in an increasingly complex media landscape. They learned early that their every appearance would be photographed and analyzed, that their fashion choices would be critiqued, and that their academic and personal achievements would always be viewed through the lens of their royal status. The relationship between their parents, while no longer romantic, remained cordial and focused on their shared commitment to raising their daughters. Andrew and Sarah often appeared together at school events and family celebrations, presenting a united front that helped the girls feel secure despite their unusual family circumstances. This cooperation between divorced parents was relatively rare in royal circles and demonstrated their shared determination to put their daughters' well-being above any personal animosity. During their teenage years, both girls faced the typical challenges of adolescence, but with the added pressure of growing up in the public eye. They attended Coworth Park School, where they were able to pursue their individual interests while maintaining their academic studies. Beatrice continued to excel in her studies, particularly in history and literature, while Eugenie developed her passion for art and began to consider how she might pursue creative interests as an adult. The sisters also began to take on small public duties during this time, appearing with their parents at charitable events and royal occasions. These early public appearances gave them their first taste of the scrutiny they would face as adult members of the royal family. The media's focus on their appearance, their behavior, and their apparent nervousness in public situations became a constant source of commentary and criticism. One of the most challenging aspects of their teenage years was dealing with criticism about their appearance and fashion choices. Unlike their cousins William and Harry, who were directly in line for the throne and therefore treated with more deference by the media, Beatrice and Eugenie found themselves subjected to harsh commentary about their weight, their clothing, and their overall presentation. The tabloid press seemed to take particular pleasure in unflattering photographs and critical commentary about their style choices. Despite these challenges, both girls continued to develop their individual personalities and interests. Beatrice showed a deep interest in social causes, particularly those related to education and literacy. She began to understand how she might use her royal platform to make a positive difference in areas that mattered to her. Eugenie, meanwhile, was drawn to environmental causes and began to educate herself about conservation issues and sustainable living. Their grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, played an increasingly important role in their lives during this period. She made sure they understood the history and traditions of the royal family, while also encouraging them to find their own paths within the modern monarchy. The Queen's guidance helped them develop a sense of duty and service that would serve them well in their adult lives. The sisters' education continued to be a priority for both parents. They were encouraged to pursue their academic interests and to consider university education, something that was becoming increasingly common for members of the royal family. This focus on education was part of Andrew and Sarah's broader strategy to prepare their daughters for independent lives that would not rely solely on their royal status. As they approached adulthood, Beatrice and Eugenie began to face questions about their future roles within the monarchy. Unlike William and Harry, who had clear paths laid out for them as future senior royals, the sisters existed in a more ambiguous space. They were certainly members of the royal family, but their position as granddaughters of the monarch, rather than children of the heir, meant their future public roles were less defined. This uncertainty about their future positions became a source of both challenge and opportunity. On one hand, they faced constant speculation about whether they would receive public funding for royal duties and whether they had legitimate roles to play in a modern monarchy. On the other hand, this ambiguity gave them more freedom to pursue their own interests and to carve out independent careers and identities. The bond between the sisters remained strong throughout all these challenges. They supported each other through difficult media coverage, celebrated each other's achievements, and maintained the close relationship they had developed in early childhood. This sisterly support would prove crucial as they faced the challenges and opportunities of young adulthood in the most scrutinized family in the world. The transition from teenagers to young adults brought new challenges and opportunities for both princesses. As they prepared to leave school and consider their next steps, the media scrutiny intensified, with every decision about their future education and career paths becoming subject to public debate and criticism. Beatrice chose to pursue higher education at Goldsmiths, University of London, where she studied history and history of ideas. This decision represented a significant step toward independence, as she would be living away from home and mixing with students from diverse backgrounds. Her choice of university and subject matter reflected her serious academic interests and her desire to develop a deep understanding of historical and social issues that would inform her future public work. The university years were both liberating and challenging for Beatrice. On one hand, she was able to experience something approaching normal student life, making friends based on shared interests rather than social status, and pursuing her academic passions without the constant oversight of royal protocol. On the other hand, she could never entirely escape her royal identity, and her presence on campus inevitably attracted media attention and curiosity from fellow students. During her time at university, Beatrice began to develop a more sophisticated understanding of the social issues that would later become central to her public work. Her studies in history gave her insight into the struggles faced by different communities throughout time, while her exposure to diverse perspectives at university helped her understand the contemporary challenges facing British society. Meanwhile, Eugenie was following her own path toward independence. She attended Marlborough College, the same school that had educated her cousin Catherine Middleton, where she continued to develop her interest in art and literature. Her time at Marlborough was marked by her growing confidence and her ability to maintain friendships while managing the unique pressures of her royal status. After completing her secondary education, Eugenie chose to attend Newcastle University, where she studied English literature, art history, and politics. This combination of subjects reflected her diverse interests and her desire to understand both creative expression and political systems. Her university experience was similar to her sister's in many ways. She enjoyed the freedom of student life, while never being able to completely escape the attention that came with her royal background. Both sisters used their university years to travel and expand their worldviews. They participated in gap year programs and study abroad opportunities that took them to different continents and exposed them to various cultures and social systems. These experiences were formative in developing their understanding of global issues and their sense of responsibility as privileged young women with platforms that could make a difference. The sisters' relationship with the media continued to evolve during this period. While they were still subject to criticism and scrutiny, they began to develop strategies for managing public attention and using their platforms more effectively. They learned to be more selective about their public appearances and more strategic about the causes they chose to support. One of the most significant challenges they faced during their young adult years was defining their roles within the modern monarchy. The royal family was undergoing a period of modernization and streamlining, with questions being raised about which members should receive public funding and carry out official duties. As granddaughters of the monarch rather than children of the heir, Beatrice and Eugenie found themselves in an uncertain position. This uncertainty was both frustrating and liberating. While they sometimes felt excluded from the central work of the royal family, they also had more freedom to pursue their own interests and careers. They began to understand that their value to the monarchy might lie not in traditional royal duties, but in their ability to connect with younger generations and support causes that reflected contemporary concerns. During this period, both sisters began to develop their individual charitable interests more seriously. Beatrice became particularly passionate about issues related to dyslexia and learning differences, drawing on her own experiences with dyslexia to advocate for better support and understanding for children facing similar challenges. Her work in this area was deeply personal and reflected her desire to use her own struggles to help others. Eugenie, meanwhile, was drawn to environmental and conservation causes. She became involved with organizations working to protect endangered species and combat human trafficking, issues that reflected her growing awareness of global challenges and her desire to use her privilege to support those without voices or power. The sisters also began to develop their professional identities outside of their royal roles. Beatrice gained work experience in various organizations, including consulting firms and nonprofit organizations, where she was able to apply her academic knowledge and develop practical skills. These experiences were crucial in helping her understand how she might contribute to society beyond her royal duties. Eugenie pursued her interest in the art world, working with galleries and auction houses to develop her knowledge of the art market and contemporary artistic trends. Her work in this field reflected both her personal passions and her understanding that she would need to develop independent sources of income and professional identity. The relationship between the sisters remained close during this period, despite their different interests and career paths. They supported each other through the challenges of developing independent identities while maintaining their royal obligations, and they often appeared together at family events and public occasions. Their parents continued to play important roles in their lives, providing guidance and support as they navigated the transition to independent adulthood. Andrew remained actively involved in his daughters' lives, attending their university graduations and supporting their charitable work. Sarah, despite her complicated relationship with the royal family, maintained a close relationship with both daughters and provided emotional support during difficult periods. The media's treatment of the sisters during this period was often unfair and sometimes cruel. They were frequently criticized for their appearance, their fashion choices, and their perceived relevance to the modern monarchy. The tabloid press seemed particularly focused on comparing them unfavorably to their more senior royal cousins and questioning their value to the institution. Despite this negative coverage, both sisters began to develop thicker skins and more sophisticated media strategies. They learned to ignore much of the criticism while focusing on the work that mattered to them. They also began to understand how to use media attention more effectively, choosing their public appearances carefully and working to highlight the causes they cared about rather than simply appearing at glamorous events. One of the most important developments during this period was their growing understanding of their unique position within the royal family. While they would never be senior working royals in the traditional sense, they began to see how they could serve as bridges between the monarchy and younger generations, bringing fresh perspectives and contemporary concerns to royal charitable work. Their university experiences also helped them develop important life skills and relationships that would serve them well in their adult lives. They learned to manage their time effectively, balance competing demands, and maintain friendships with people from diverse backgrounds. These skills would prove invaluable as they transitioned into full adult responsibilities. The sisters also began to travel more independently during this period, representing the royal family at various international events and developing their own diplomatic skills. These experiences gave them confidence in public speaking and helped them understand how to represent British interests and values in international settings. As they approached graduation and the transition to full adult life, both Beatrice and Eugenie had developed clearer senses of their individual identities and their potential contributions to society. They had learned to navigate the challenges of being minor royals in a changing world, and they had begun to develop the skills and relationships that would enable them to make meaningful contributions both within and outside the royal framework. The foundation laid during their university years would prove crucial as they faced the next phase of their lives, which would bring new challenges in the form of career development, romantic relationships, and an evolving understanding of their roles within the British monarchy and society at large. The years following university marked a crucial period of self-discovery and professional development for both princesses. As they entered their 20s, Beatrice and Eugenie faced the complex challenge of building careers while maintaining their royal obligations, all under the persistent gaze of public scrutiny. Beatrice's first significant professional role came with Sony Pictures, where she worked as a production assistant. This position represented a deliberate choice to enter the business world on her own merits, rather than relying solely on her royal connections. Her colleagues later reported that she was hardworking, professional, and eager to learn, often staying late to understand all aspects of film production and distribution. The experience at Sony Pictures was transformative for Beatrice, as it gave her first-hand insight into the entertainment industry and helped her develop practical business skills. She learned about project management, budget planning, and team coordination, all skills that would prove valuable in her later charitable and business endeavors. More importantly, this role helped her gain confidence in her ability to succeed in professional environments based on her capabilities rather than her title. During this period, Beatrice also began to take on more significant charitable responsibilities. Her work with the Helen Arkell Dyslexia Center became increasingly important to her, as she drew on her personal experience with learning differences to advocate for better support and understanding. She visited schools, spoke at conferences, and worked to raise awareness about the challenges faced by children with dyslexia and other learning differences. Her advocacy work was deeply personal and authentic, which made it particularly effective. Beatrice spoke openly about her own struggles with dyslexia, describing how it had affected her self-confidence during school years and how she had learned to develop coping strategies. This honesty and vulnerability resonated with parents, teachers, and children dealing with similar challenges and helped establish her credibility as an advocate. Meanwhile, Eugenie was building her own career in the art world. After completing her university studies, she joined Hauser & Wirth, a prestigious contemporary art gallery with locations in London, New York, and Zurich. Her role involved working with artists, collectors, and curators to organize exhibitions and manage relationships with clients from around the world. Eugenie's work in the art world allowed her to combine her academic interests with her personal passions while building practical business skills. She learned about art valuation, exhibition planning, and client relationship management, all while working with some of the most important contemporary artists and collectors in the world. Her colleagues appreciated her genuine enthusiasm for art and her willingness to work hard to understand all aspects of the gallery business. The art world experience was particularly valuable for Eugenie because it exposed her to diverse perspectives and global cultural trends. Through her work, she met artists, collectors, and cultural leaders from many different countries and backgrounds, expanding her worldview and deepening her understanding of contemporary social and political issues. Both sisters also began to develop their public speaking skills during this period, accepting invitations to speak at conferences, charity events, and educational institutions. These speaking engagements helped them build confidence and articulate their views on issues they cared about, while also raising their profiles as serious advocates rather than simply ceremonial figures. The sisters' romantic relationships also began to attract significant media attention during their 20s. Beatrice's relationships were subjected to intense scrutiny, with the press analyzing every public appearance and speculating about the seriousness of each relationship. The media attention often focused more on the personal details of her romantic life than on her professional achievements or charitable work, which was both frustrating and invasive. Eugenie faced similar challenges with media coverage of her personal relationships. The press seemed particularly interested in her romantic life, often publishing unauthorized photographs and speculating about her future marriage plans. This attention was particularly difficult because it often overshadowed her professional accomplishments and charitable work. Despite the media pressure, both sisters continued to pursue their personal relationships while trying to maintain some privacy. They learned to be more strategic about their public appearances and more protective of their personal lives, understanding that some aspects of their lives needed to be kept away from public scrutiny in order to maintain healthy relationships and personal well-being. The sisters' relationship with their extended royal family also evolved during this period. They maintained close relationships with their grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, who continued to provide guidance and support as they navigated their unique positions within the modern monarchy. The Queen appreciated their commitment to charitable work and their efforts to build independent careers while maintaining their royal obligations. Their relationships with their cousins, Princes William and Harry, remained warm but became more complex as the generational responsibilities shifted. William and Harry were taking on increasingly senior roles within the royal family, while Beatrice and Eugenie found themselves in more peripheral positions. This shift required them to adjust their expectations and find new ways to contribute meaningfully to the royal mission. During this period, both sisters also became more involved in international charitable work and diplomatic activities. They represented the royal family at various events around the world, from cultural celebrations to humanitarian initiatives. These international experiences helped them develop diplomatic skills and broaden their understanding of global issues. Beatrice's international work often focused on education and literacy initiatives, reflecting her personal commitment to learning and development. She visited schools and educational programs in various countries, learning about different approaches to education and sharing best practices. These experiences reinforced her belief in the transformative power of education and inspired her to expand her charitable work in this area. Eugenie's international activities often centered around environmental and conservation issues. She participated in conferences and initiatives focused on protecting endangered species and combating environmental degradation. Her work in this area was informed by her growing understanding of the interconnected nature of global challenges and her belief in the importance of environmental stewardship. The sisters also began to develop more sophisticated approaches to media relations during this period. They learned to work more effectively with journalists and communications professionals, understanding how to shape narratives around their work and interests rather than simply reacting to media coverage. This strategic approach to media relations helped them gain more control over their public images and focus attention on their charitable and professional activities. Their fashion choices continued to attract significant attention, but both sisters began to use their public platforms more strategically to support British designers and sustainable fashion initiatives. They understood that their clothing choices were always going to be scrutinized, so they tried to make those choices meaningful by supporting causes and designers they believed in. The financial aspects of their lives also became more complex during this period. As minor royals without guaranteed public funding for their activities, both sisters needed to develop independent sources of income while maintaining their charitable commitments. This balancing act required careful planning and strategic decision-making about their time and resources. Both Beatrice and Eugenie also began to think more seriously about their long-term goals and how they wanted to shape their adult lives. They understood that they would need to continue balancing their royal obligations with their personal and professional ambitions, and they began to develop more sophisticated strategies for managing these competing demands. The sisterly bond between Beatrice and Eugenie remained strong during this period, even as they pursued different career paths and developed distinct public personalities. They continued to support each other through personal and professional challenges, and they often appeared together at family events and charitable functions. Their relationship served as a source of stability and support as they navigated the unique challenges of being young adult royals in a rapidly changing world. As the sisters entered their late 20s and early 30s, their lives began to take on new depth and meaning through significant romantic relationships, expanding charitable work, and a growing sense of confidence in their public roles. This period would prove to be transformative, as both women found ways to honor their royal heritage while building authentic, independent lives. Eugenie's relationship with Jack Brooksbank became increasingly serious during this time. Jack, who worked in hospitality and later became a brand ambassador for Casamigos tequila, represented a departure from the traditional royal romantic pattern. He was not from aristocratic background, had not attended prestigious schools, and worked in industries that were relatively new to royal circles. Their relationship faced intense scrutiny from the media, with many questioning whether their different backgrounds would create challenges. The couple's relationship deepened gradually, built on shared interests in travel, environmental conservation, and social causes. Jack's down-to-earth personality complemented Eugenie's more outgoing nature, and their friends noted how comfortable and genuine they seemed together. Their relationship was also notable for its normalcy. They lived together in London, went on regular holidays, and maintained friendships with people from diverse backgrounds. Meanwhile, Beatrice's romantic life continued to be subject to media speculation and analysis. She had several relationships that attracted public attention, each one dissected by tabloids and royal watchers for signs of potential marriage prospects. The pressure of this constant scrutiny made it difficult for her to develop natural relationships, as potential partners had to be prepared for the intense media attention that came with dating a princess. During this period, both sisters significantly expanded their charitable work and began to develop more sophisticated approaches to philanthropy. Beatrice's involvement with dyslexia awareness grew into a broader commitment to educational equity and literacy initiatives. She began working with multiple organizations, from small local charities to large international nonprofits, all focused on improving educational outcomes for children with learning differences. Her approach to charitable work was notably hands-on and research-based. Rather than simply lending her name to causes, Beatrice invested time in understanding the underlying issues, visiting programs, meeting with experts, and developing informed perspectives on policy solutions. She frequently spoke about the importance of early intervention, teacher training, and parental support in helping children with learning differences reach their full potential. Eugenie's charitable focus expanded to include anti-slavery and human trafficking initiatives, work that brought her into contact with some of the most serious humanitarian challenges of the modern era. Her involvement with the Anti-Slavery Collective, which she co-founded, demonstrated her commitment to using her platform for meaningful social change rather than simply ceremonial activities. The anti-slavery work was particularly significant because it required Eugenie to educate herself about complex global issues, including supply chain ethics, labor practices, and the intersection of poverty and exploitation. She worked with law enforcement agencies, international nonprofits, and survivor advocacy groups to understand the scope of modern slavery and develop effective responses. Both sisters also began to take on more significant roles in their family's charitable foundations and initiatives. They participated in strategy discussions, helped identify new focus areas, and represented the royal family at increasingly important international events. Their growing expertise and commitment impressed both family members and professional colleagues, establishing their credibility as serious advocates. The question of their official royal roles continued to evolve during this period. While they were not designated as working royals with full-time royal schedules, both sisters found ways to contribute meaningfully to the royal family's mission while maintaining their independent careers and interests. They developed a hybrid approach that allowed them to support royal initiatives while pursuing their own charitable and professional goals. Their public speaking skills continued to develop significantly during this time. Both sisters became comfortable addressing large audiences, participating in panel discussions, and engaging with media interviews about their work. Their growing confidence in these settings reflected their deepening knowledge of the issues they championed and their increasing comfort with their public roles. Eugenie's decision to share her personal story about scoliosis surgery represented a significant moment in her development as a public figure. She had undergone major spinal surgery as a child to correct severe scoliosis, an experience that was deeply traumatic but ultimately successful. Her decision to speak openly about this experience, including showing the surgical scar on her back, demonstrated courage and authenticity that resonated with many people facing similar medical challenges. This personal revelation was particularly powerful because it showed Eugenie's willingness to be vulnerable in service of helping others. She began working with organizations supporting children and families dealing with scoliosis, sharing her story to provide hope and practical guidance. Her advocacy in this area was deeply personal and authentic, making it particularly effective in reaching people who needed support and encouragement. The sisters' relationship with social media and digital communication also evolved during this period. They began using platforms like Instagram more strategically to share information about their charitable work, highlight causes they cared about, and provide glimpses into their personal lives that helped humanize them for younger audiences. Their approach to social media was notably authentic and unpolished compared to many celebrity accounts. They shared personal photos, behind-the-scenes glimpses of their charitable work, and genuine reflections on issues they cared about. This authenticity helped them connect with audiences who appreciated their willingness to be real rather than perfectly curated. Both sisters also began to think more seriously about their long-term impact and legacy. They understood that their unique positions gave them opportunities to influence important conversations and support meaningful causes, but they also recognized the need to be strategic and focused in their efforts. They began developing longer-term plans for their charitable work and considering how they could maximize their positive impact. The fashion and style coverage of the sisters also evolved during this period. While their clothing choices continued to attract attention, both women began using their fashion platforms more deliberately to support sustainable fashion, emerging designers, and ethical manufacturing practices. They understood that their fashion choices were always going to be noticed, so they made conscious decisions to use that attention for positive purposes. Their relationships with their parents continued to be important sources of support and guidance. Andrew remained actively involved in his daughters' lives, offering advice on their charitable work and supporting their professional development. Sarah, despite her complicated relationship with the royal establishment, maintained close relationships with both daughters and provided emotional support during challenging periods. The sisters' bond remained exceptionally strong during this transformative period. They continued to support each other through personal and professional challenges, celebrate each other's achievements, and maintain the close relationship that had sustained them through their unconventional royal childhood. Their friendship served as a constant source of stability as they navigated the complexities of adult life in the public eye. As this period drew to a close, both women had established themselves as serious advocates and professionals while maintaining their warm, approachable public personas. They had learned to balance their royal obligations with their personal ambitions, developed expertise in areas they cared about, and built the foundation for the next phase of their lives, which would bring marriage, motherhood, and even greater responsibilities. Their journey from uncertain young adults to confident women with clear purposes demonstrated the power of perseverance, authenticity, and mutual support. They had proven that minor royals could make major contributions to society while remaining true to their own values and interests. The most recent chapter in the lives of Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie have been marked by personal fulfillment, professional achievement, and a growing confidence in their roles as modern royals who have successfully carved out meaningful places for themselves in both the monarchy and contemporary British society. Eugenie's wedding to Jack Brooksbank on October 12, 2018, represented a defining moment not just in her personal life, but in her evolution as a public figure. The ceremony at St. George's Chapel, Windsor Castle, was a celebration that perfectly reflected the couple's personalities and values. Eugenie made the bold decision to wear a wedding dress designed by Peter Pilato that featured a low back, deliberately showcasing the scar from her childhood scoliosis surgery. This decision to display her surgical scar was profoundly meaningful, transforming what could have been a source of self-consciousness into a powerful statement of acceptance and authenticity. The image of Eugenie walking down the aisle, beautiful and confident, with her scar visible, became an inspiration to countless people around the world who had felt self-conscious about their own scars or physical differences. It demonstrated her commitment to honesty and vulnerability, even in the most formal and traditional of royal settings. The wedding itself was a perfect blend of royal tradition and modern personality. The ceremony included many of the formal elements expected at a royal wedding, but it was also infused with personal touches that reflected the couple's relationship and values. The guest list included both members of European royal families and friends from Jack's hospitality industry background, symbolizing the way their marriage bridged different worlds. The reception and celebrations extended over several days, with events that ranged from formal state occasions to casual gatherings with close friends and family. Throughout all of these events, Eugenie and Jack appeared relaxed and genuinely happy, setting a tone that influenced how the public perceived their relationship. Their obvious joy and comfort with each other helped establish them as a couple who had married for love rather than duty or expectation. Following her wedding, Eugenie's approach to her royal duties evolved to reflect her new status as a married woman while maintaining her individual identity and charitable commitments. She continued her work with anti-slavery initiatives, environmental conservation, and scoliosis awareness, but she began to coordinate these efforts more closely with Jack's interests and expertise. Their shared commitment to environmental issues became a particular focus of their joint activities. Meanwhile, Beatrice's personal life took a different but equally meaningful trajectory when she met Edoardo Mazzi, an Italian property developer and entrepreneur. Their relationship developed more privately than many of Eugenie's previous relationships, partly because Edoardo was already known in London social circles, and partly because Beatrice had become more skilled at maintaining privacy around her personal life. Edoardo, who is known professionally as Edo, brought a different dynamic to Beatrice's life than many of her previous relationships. As a successful businessman with his own established career and social connections, he was less dependent on her royal status for his own identity and achievements. He was also a single father, which added complexity but also depth to their relationship as Beatrice developed a close bond with his son from a previous relationship. Their engagement, announced in September 2019, was celebrated as a love match between two people who complemented each other well. The engagement photos showed a relaxed and happy couple, and the announcement highlighted their shared interests in travel, philanthropy, and family life. The engagement ring, a vintage design that had belonged to Edoardo's family, reflected their appreciation for tradition and sustainability. The couple's wedding plans were significantly impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic, which forced them to postpone their original ceremony and ultimately led to a much smaller, more intimate celebration. Their wedding on July 17, 2020, took place at the Royal Chapel of All Saints at Royal Lodge, Windsor, with only 20 close family members present due to pandemic restrictions. Despite the limitations imposed by the pandemic, Beatrice's wedding was deeply meaningful and personal. She wore a vintage dress borrowed from Queen Elizabeth II, a gesture that honored her grandmother while also reflecting her commitment to sustainable fashion practices. The tiara she wore had also belonged to the Queen, creating a beautiful connection across generations of royal women. The intimate nature of the wedding, while not what they had originally planned, created a different kind of magic. The smaller guest list meant that every person present was truly important to the couple, and the reduced formality allowed for a more personal and emotional ceremony. The wedding photos, released several weeks later, showed a couple who were clearly delighted with each other and comfortable with their decision to prioritize their relationship over public expectations. Following their weddings, both sisters entered new phases of their lives that combined their established charitable and professional interests with the responsibilities and joys of married life. They continued to support each other while also developing new relationships and priorities that reflected their changing circumstances. Eugenie and Jack welcomed their first child, August Philip Hawk Brooksbank, in February 2021. The arrival of their son marked Eugenie's transition into motherhood and added new dimensions to her charitable work and public role. She began to focus more intensively on issues affecting children and families, drawing on her personal experience of pregnancy and early parenthood to inform her advocacy. Her approach to sharing news about her son reflected the same authenticity and thoughtfulness that had characterized her wedding decisions. She shared personal photos and updates that allowed the public to share in her joy while maintaining appropriate privacy around her child's daily life. Her posts about motherhood were genuine and relatable, helping to humanize her royal status for many people. Beatrice welcomed her daughter, Sienna Elizabeth Mazzi, in September 2021. The birth of her daughter marked another significant milestone in her personal development and added new meaning to her charitable work focused on education and children's welfare. Like her sister, she approached sharing news about her child with careful consideration for both public interest and family privacy. Both sisters' experiences of motherhood have influenced their charitable work in meaningful ways. They have become more focused on issues affecting children and families and their advocacy work has gained additional credibility and passion from their personal experiences as mothers. They have also become more selective about their commitments, prioritizing activities that align with their values and allow them to balance their family responsibilities with their public duties. The sisters' relationship has evolved to include their new roles as mothers and wives while maintaining the strong bond that has sustained them throughout their lives. They frequently spend time together with their families, and their children are developing relationships with each other that echo the close sisterly bond their mothers share. Their approach to raising their children reflects lessons learned from their own unconventional royal childhood. Both sisters are committed to giving their children as normal childhoods as possible while also preparing them for the unique aspects of being connected to the royal family. They are working to create environments where their children can develop their own identities and interests while understanding their heritage and family history. The professional and charitable work of both sisters has continued to evolve and expand even as they have taken on the responsibilities of motherhood. They have become more strategic and focused in their activities, choosing commitments that allow them to make meaningful contributions while maintaining their family priorities. Eugenie's work with anti-slavery initiatives has grown to include policy advocacy and international collaboration with law enforcement and humanitarian organizations. Her platform has allowed her to raise awareness about modern slavery issues and support legislative and enforcement efforts to combat human trafficking. Her work in this area has earned recognition from professional organizations and has established her as a credible advocate in the humanitarian community. Beatrice's educational advocacy has expanded to include policy discussions about learning differences, teacher training, and educational equity. She has worked with government officials, educational professionals, and parent advocacy groups to promote better understanding and support for children with dyslexia and other learning differences. Her personal experience, combined with her growing expertise, has made her an effective spokesperson for educational reform. Both sisters have also developed stronger voices on environmental and sustainability issues, reflecting their generation's concerns about climate change and environmental degradation. They have used their platforms to promote sustainable fashion, conservation efforts, and corporate responsibility, while also making personal choices that reflect their environmental values. Looking ahead, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie have established themselves as thoughtful, committed advocates who have successfully balanced their royal heritage with modern lives built around their own values and priorities. They have proven that minor royals can make major contributions to society while maintaining authentic personal relationships and independent professional identities. Their journey from uncertain teenagers to confident women, wives, and mothers demonstrates the power of perseverance, mutual support, and authentic self-expression. They have created lives that honor their royal heritage while reflecting their individual personalities and contemporary values, setting an example for how traditional institutions can evolve and remain relevant in changing times. The sisters' story continues to unfold as they raise their children, expand their charitable work, and find new ways to serve their communities and country. Their commitment to authenticity, service, and family has created a foundation for meaningful lives that will likely inspire others for years to come. They have shown that being royal in the modern era is not about perfection or protocol, but about using privilege responsibly and maintaining genuine connections with the people and causes that matter most.